Today, just a few short days shy of the holiday season, a lot of teams this weekend took it upon themselves to go a little first baseman shopping. We're talking about who's left on the board and which teams are still in play as the Pete Alonso saga rolls on. What is going on, everybody? My name is Flobo Boyce, and you're locked into this edition of Mets Digest. We try to give you the best Mets news and notes and try to see from a different perspective how things affect the orange and blue. So thank you so much for rocking with us. And so if you watch this video and you like what we're putting down, do us a favor. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Make sure you're in the know when new content drops, either from myself or my tag team, my broadcast partner, Mike D'Angelo. So as I record this, it is a late Sunday night here, and we are just going through everything that's happened with the trades that came fast and furious over the past 36 hours. A lot of teams decided to go shopping for themselves, getting some first basemen off the board. In fact, this started a little bit on Saturday with the first announcement from being Paul Goldschmidt going to the New York Yankees, which to me, Paul Goldschmidt would have been the best stopgap option if the Mets were going to employ that strategy. The idea is like, well, maybe we might wait for a big fish like Vladimir Guerrero next season. We'll talk more about him in just a minute. But he got off the board to a Yankees team that's looking like for their own stopgap situation as he replaces another aging veteran in Rizzo. But that's besides the point. Jeff Passan tweeted this yesterday, and I actually have the timestamp here, December 21st. It's Saturday as I record this. It says, over the last 24 hours, Christian Walker to Houston, Paul Goldschmidt to the New York Yankees, Josh Naylor to Arizona, Carlos Santana to Cleveland, and of course, he had listed at the time the first baseman still available in free agency. That's Alonso, Rizzo, Bell, Ty France, and of course, Lamont Wade Jr. and Nathaniel Lowe at the time would have been available via trade because they still have team control. But as I say this, the next day, we had another one come off the board in Nathaniel Lowe. The Washington Nationals are finalizing a trade to acquire first baseman Nathaniel Lowe from the Texas Rangers. Sources tell ESPN. And as that were happening, that is legitimate. That's going to happen then for that team. So where does that leave Pete Alonso? Well, if you go by the flurry, and I actually want to put this up one more time so you kind of actually have a better look at that shopping list. You just have it handy. There's so many teams out there you were thinking that would be in the market for someone like Pete Alonso, right? Especially we had Houston looking for a power at first base. The idea of going cross town to the Yankees was something that was discussed, even though I didn't personally subscribe to that. And of course, the Washington Nationals. Why the Washington Nationals? Because even though they have a young core, they're pretty much at a crossroads. Do you double down on that young core, maybe take a year or two to build, or do you say, okay, that's great, let's hit the afterburners and go forward? So that would have been a dark horse, and it really was a dark horse coming to so many other analysis and insiders like third or fourth dark horse options, but now that is totally off the board. And that's not even mentioning someone like Jake Berger, who went to the Rangers early in the postseason, who's pretty much a corner outfielder, but looks like with Nathaniel Lowe gone, he'll be playing more of that first base situation. Shout out to Josh Bell, by the way. Here's somebody that was in Miami last year doing his job, and they told him, yeah, we're not going to go anywhere. He can go elsewhere. It's been a little season there in Arizona. I'm a big fan of him personally. So, as we get towards the offseason, into the thick of the holiday season, a couple days ago, right here on this channel, there really was reports saying that, hey, look, we may not have an answer for the Pete Alonso situation until January or February, but with the flurry of acquisitions over the past 2 days, it's starting to look a little bit difficult as to what other options would Pete Alonso actually end up in. Let's take New York off the board. Yeah, you could argue Seattle needs a first baseman. I mean, the whole Ty France situation. But will Seattle put the money up for someone like Pete Alonso? Would Pete Alonso uproot his life and go over there? And also, if we don't, I mean we, meaning the Mets, if the Mets don't resign Pete Alonso, that idea of shifting Vientos to first or using someone the third is still up in the air. Or if you're doing a hot swap into a journeyman or a stopgap solution for someone like a Vladimir Guerrero, that is also pretty dry. I mean, the only person I can think of off the top of my head that would fit that role now with Goldschmidt going to the Yankees is someone like Connor Joe, which yeah, Colin Joe's pretty capable. Like he's great on my fantasy baseball team, but he hit 9 home runs last year. And so I can imagine that was going to be the hot swap. People would be a little bit upset. SportsIllustrated.com actually puts a button on this I thought was pretty interesting. I want to read this one to you. It just pretty much puts down the whole market situation and what that means for Pete Alonso's camp as we hit into the holiday week. It says shout out to Joe Najarian for this. It says, Christian Walker signing with Houston Astros had a chain reaction of signings and trades in the first base market. This include Paul Goldschmidt signed with the Crosstown Yankees, and of course Josh Naylor being traded from the Cleveland Guardians to the Arizona Diamondbacks. That replaces Josh Bell. And Carlos Santana subsequently signing with Cleveland as well. Although there are options outside of Alonso that are still available, nearly all of the New York stopgap options are gone. I talked about that with Goldschmidt. The stopgap options would also imply the team would be going after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Munetaka Murakami next offseason, but that is two big question marks there because you got to think about this season before next season. But those two will likely command bigger deals than Alonso, and that is the crux of it. I don't think it's a money issue. It's pretty much been established that the team has cash and is willing to put the money up if you think you're valuable. I just feel like David Stearns is having a bit of a crisis here with this measured approach versus someone who's essentially a fan favorite. Someone who's having a down year and is projected to have another down year, but still mashed 34 homers for you and bailed you out a couple times in the postseason. Yeah, look, we had the Juan Soto saga. I think it's a sign that you actually made it, that you can have your own saga shot to Pete Alonso for doing that. But as it is right now, there doesn't seem to be any other team that has put the hours in or has been linked to Alonso as long as New York. I'm not saying it's a done deal. I'm not going to be the one to speculate and stir the pot. But especially having the dark horse teams pick their own first baseman over the past weekend, it looks more and more apparent they may have a reunion in Queens. And that's actually pretty good because that will give us time for Vientos to develop at third base. Actually, I'm not a fan of moving Vientos to first, not because I don't think he can do it. I think he's amazing at it. But I do think over the past year, Vientos' arm has improved from third base with the daily reps of working on the far corner outfield. But that's just one guy, me being a fan. What say you? The flurry of first base acquisitions, so many reports flying left and right. What do you think about who made the best deal, team-wise and player-wise? I want your opinion on that, and especially now with knowing this, now knowing Goldie isn't on the table, now knowing Naylor isn't on the table, Santana isn't on the table, Pete Alonso has to be coming back to Queens, right? Right? Well, before we get out of here, I just want to say baseball this weekend lost a legend. Rickey Henderson passed away just a few days shy of his 66th birthday, which would have been Wednesday, December 25th. Called the Man of Steel. He played for many teams, and he's in the Hall of Fame as an athletic. But growing up, I watched him play at Citi Field / Shea Stadium, being able to command such a presence, a large baseball mind, even though he seemed to be outrunning Father Time himself, an inspiration for a whole generation of Mets fans and baseball fans. And so as a kid who became a fan of the New York Mets because there are people out there on the field that looked like me, Rickey Henderson was legendary for more than one reason. That is it for me. You hit the end of the video. Like, subscribe, let me know what you think. And of course, as always, it's LGM to the bitter end.